Coming in at number 10 today is Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is the 5th person to assume the role of the Caped Crusaders' ward, Robin. But Damian is more than that. As you might have surmised from the last name, Damian Wayne is none other than the son of Bruce Wayne, Batman. Much to the Dark Knight's surprise, the assassin Talia al Ghul, daughter of Ra's al Ghul, had, in secret, given birth to Damian, and she had been raising the little Wayne in secret within the League of Assassins. Now, he first burst onto the scene in Batman and Robin Volume 2, Number 1 in November of 2011, and caused quite the uproar within the Bat family. Being raised surrounded by a bunch of assassins, he found adjusting to the morals of his father to be somewhat challenging, but he has stepped into the role really well. He is lethal, volatile, and arrogant, but he has adjusted to the ways of being a hero and wants nothing more than to be the best hero he can be for Gotham and for his father. Similar to Jonathan Kent, Damian is set to be an even more successful Batman when he inevitably takes over the role, and with all the training he has from basically birth, it doesn't surprise me either. Number 9. Hit Girl. We don't really talk about Kick-Ass so much, and that makes sense when talking about powerful heroes because there isn't really anyone from the Kick-Ass comic who is really super powered. But in terms of sheer capability, Mindy McCready, aka Hit Girl, the sidekick to the hero Big Daddy, and also his daughter, is probably the most capable character in the whole thing. Mindy can take out hordes of armed mob henchmen in seconds with her double-bladed polearm, and she does, tearing through enemies with such finesse she makes it look like a dance. Her unusually refined skills are all thanks to the pretty ruthless training she undergoes at the hands of her father, Big Daddy. Although it's not revealed till later, Big Daddy was a cop who essentially went rogue and tricked Mindy into training her whole childhood to become Hit Girl and fight crime with a bogus story that her mother had been taken out by a particular mafia boss. Using that made-up backstory as motivation, the two trained in all forms of lethal weaponry and martial arts to become strong enough to take on their target. Although Big Daddy himself isn't really a pushover, he does not have the same kind of fighting style as Mindy. Being able to take out groups of armed grown men in melee combat is a testament to just how strong she is, and she isn't even an adult yet, so just imagine what she could actually achieve later on. Number 8. Invincible. Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, is a member of the race known as the Viltrumites, a group of extremely powerful human-like aliens who, due to their diminished numbers, go solo out into the universe to conquer planets for their empire. Now, Mark's dad, Omni-Man, is the most powerful superhero on Earth, until one day he reveals his true Viltrumite mission and does battle with his son, who convinces him to the error of his ways. Now, Viltrumites are basically immortal. They age at an extremely slow rate, which slows down even further as they mature, eventually stopping altogether. They also get stronger and stronger with age, and every time they are defeated or gravely hurt in combat, they will heal very quickly to become even stronger than they were before. Viltrumites can also fly and survive the vacuum of space. Mark, his dad, and another Viltrumite once flew through the core of a planet, completely destroying that planet. That's how powerful Viltrumites are. But Mark himself has defeated people much more powerful than himself, with sheer willpower and determination, even those who have defeated his much more experienced father. He eventually becomes a galactic peacekeeper, bringing the whole entire universe to a state of complete peace and prosperity, which is something his dad just could not do.
At number 7 is Sabretooth, the son of a bad guy in all senses of the word. His father Zebediah isn't necessarily a supervillain, but he's definitely a villain through and through, so it counts well enough for this list. When he notices his son's mutations starting to form, Zebediah locks a young Sabretooth, aka Victor Creed, in his basement and yanks out his sharp teeth one by one. Convinced that Sabretooth is a spawn of the devil, his father keeps him in captivity for so long that Victor decides to bite his own hand off in order to escape his bindings. Before he goes off to become Sabretooth, he takes a quick pit stop to kill his evil father, which is quite satisfying, to be honest. Sabretooth is a real powerhouse of a villain who famously becomes a nemesis to Wolverine and has been part of such teams as the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, X-Force, and even the X-Men for a brief period. At number 6 is Genesis, aka Evan Sabanur, son of Apocalypse. Evan grows up surrounded by good mutants and seems to do everything in his power to follow a path of good. He teams up with heroes like Jean Grey and Deadpool to fight off the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and more specifically, Daken, who is the main leader of the organization for that time. Eventually, during the Axis storyline, Evan matures into what appears to be a spitting image of his very powerful and very evil father, Apocalypse, and teams up with an inverted X-Men group who try and take over Manhattan. In this event, Evan faces off against the Avengers, showing how far he's come as a powerhouse up until that time. Tragically, Genesis finds himself caught between good and evil for his whole life until his untimely death during the Age of X-Men storyline at the hands of Omega Red. But he has an impressive run and actually shows some self-control not to fully give in to evil, especially considering who his dad was. At number 5, we of course have Scarlet Witch. This is a very commonly discussed case where this well-known hero has a very famous, or infamous, supervillain father named Magneto. And even though we don't get to hear anything of this origin in the MCU due to licensing rights, she is in fact the daughter of Magneto. Yes, her brother Quicksilver shares the same internal conflict as she does, having such an evil father, both of them starting as agents of Hydra and counterparts to the Avengers. But as Scarlet Witch matures and joins the good guys, she becomes one of the most powerful superheroes, not just in the Avengers, but in all the Marvel comics. Her ability to manipulate psionic energy, or magic if you will, offers such a dynamic range to the character and gives the Avengers a huge boost in their power levels as a team. Although her intentions have always been a little questionable considering her potential for evil down to her roots. Like, you know, that one time in House of M when she says, "No more mutants," and literally wipes out the mutant gene just to get back at her father for being a bad dad. This both shows her spontaneous potential for evil, but also her extreme power, giving her a rightful spot right smack in the middle of this list. At number 4 is Carnage, son of Venom. Carnage is such a powerful spawn of Venom that Venom actually becomes terrified of Carnage, forcing him to actually team up with Spider-Man as a result. Carnage is known to be more powerful than Venom and Spider-Man combined after he faces off against both of them at once and wins. He also has plenty more abilities than Venom does, like his ability to see out of every inch of the symbiote, lift up to 80 tons, and create fully formed weapons from his symbiotic tissue, not to mention his psychic control. And that's only a few of the abilities because I don't want this list to drag on. He's an all-around more powerful version of Venom that I'm sure Venom sometimes wishes he'd never brought into this world. At number 3 is Hela. Hela is one of the most powerful villains, hands down, and she happens to be the daughter of the trickster god Loki. This isn't the case in the MCU where she's Loki's sister, but in terms of the comics, she most definitely fits on this list. And what's most interesting about this case is how much more powerful she becomes than her father. The case of Hela just shows how one's own experience can vastly outweigh the influence of their genetics, because I'd argue that Hela's power mostly comes from her experience being banished to hell. After Odin sends her to her confinement in this dark realm, she gains a lot of her resentment and eventually becomes the full-fledged goddess of death. And most notably, her killing touch takes the cake in terms of power and puts her ahead of most of the other entries on this list. At number 2 is Galacta. Now, you may want to chew my head off for putting Galacta above Hela, but you have to hear me out. She is the earthly daughter of Galactus, and although she usually hides her ability, she still has the ability to consume entire worlds. There's no two ways about it. Just because she has an easier time controlling her hunger and takes on a pretty harmless looking human form doesn't mean that she is any less capable of destroying entire planets with little to no effort. It's just plain lucky for the humans of Earth that she uses her ability for good and travels the world consuming harmful beings and viruses instead, like the Skrull virus. This is one of those cases where perhaps Galactus' child isn't quite as powerful as he is, but even coming close to that, which she does, still puts her in an insanely high echelon considering how high the bar is for a being like Galactus. At number 1 is Thane, son of Thanos. Known to be just as powerful, if not more powerful than Thanos, Thane takes the top spot on our list without question. Going under the radar for years as something of a secret son of Thanos, Thane lived as an Inhuman on Attilan, but was eventually unleashed as an equally power-hungry villain to Thanos. Acquiring the Phoenix Force for a while, Thane's abilities only increased as he went on a deadly conquest to become the ruler of the universe. His left hand has a Death Touch ability which can change the fabric of existence on command, and his right hand has the Amber Encasement ability which traps people in a state of being between life and death. where they're completely in his control. And of course, the Phoenix Force, when he gets it, only augments these powers while he has it. Luckily, Thane is currently banished in the God Quarry, the only place that Thanos could think to keep him from taking over the universe and getting in the way of his own tyrannous pursuits.
Number 10. Stargirl. Stargirl is Courtney Whitmore, and while she herself isn't superpowered, she does wield an immensely powerful staff that grants her a ton of power. The staff is known as the Cosmic Staff, and before was wielded by Jack Knight. It also has sometimes been known as the Cosmic Rod. The device itself has tons of powers and abilities and was initially created by Ted Knight, the original Starman. While you might think that removing the staff from Stargirl would work in defeating her if, all of her power is just in this one item, the rod itself can become attuned to users who then use it and summon it with mental commands. At present, it is attuned and bonded to Stargirl, so good luck trying to defeat her, because if you separate her from it, she'll just summon it right back. Powers include gravity and magnetic manipulation, energy projection and absorption, the ability to create energy constructs, force fields, potentially bolster strength, and more.
Number 9. Hero Kala. When the Hulk was banished from Earth by the Illuminati during Planet Hulk, he crash-landed on the planet Sakaar, which is where the Hulk met his second wife, Khaira. Although Khaira appeared to pass away in the destruction of Sakaar, she actually gave birth to Bruce/Hulk's first children, Scar and Hero Kala. Now, a lot of people are aware of Scar, and he even had an appearance in the MCU, although he looks nothing like he should. But Hero Kala seems to be often overlooked. While Scar looks like his dad, Hero Kala takes more after his shadow child mother in more ways than one. Other than being pale, bald, and rather skinny looking, Kala inherited the ancient old power after the destruction of Sakaar. But learning that the old power was corrupt, he just creates the new power by combining the old power with the power cosmic, fueled by hate for Galactus. With this power, Hero Kala has insane levels of durability. He's been able to bestow the power on others, mutating them. He could create force fields capable of taking on a blast from Galactus himself. He had precognitive visions. He could create energy blasts powerful enough to destroy planets and turn into stone. He's incinerated fools, made people's heads explode. He can fly, control tectonic plates, move planets, and pull them out of their orbit. And yeah, he's kind of off the chain. I don't know.
Number 8. Impulse. Bart Allen has been more associated with the Kid Flash name than the main Flash name, though he did at one point dress as the Flash in order to buy time for Wally. Unfortunately, his very brief time impersonating the Flash wearing the costume was cut very short at this time, as Bart was without his powers and ended up being killed. Of course, this was still a very moving story involving Bart, who's probably the most beloved member of the Flash family, with really only Iris and Jay West offering, I would say, any potential competition. These two are also a couple of super lovable cuties as Wally and Linda's kids. Also, despite being young, Bart Allen is still super powerful when he is powered. He can time travel, hop dimensions, and has been shown to be fast enough to fend off and even beat Godspeed, and he can phase. Bart Allen would end up taking up the speedster hero mantle of Impulse. Number 7. Spider-Boy. Spider-Boy hails from Earth 8, where Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales end up together. They have 2 children as a couple, and Max of course is one of them. Max's power is similar to his parents but does not possess any spider sense capabilities. He took up the name Spider-Boy when he joined up with the Amazing 8, a team of multiversal spider-like heroes. Max isn't alone on the team, which not only features characters outside of his universe, but also includes both his mom and his dad, Gwen and Miles of Earth 8, and of course his sister. Number 6. Spider-Girl. Spider-Girl is also the daughter of Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy on Earth 8. Her name is Charlotte, and she is also, of course, the sister of Maximilian Max Morales Stacy. While Max does not possess spider sense, Spider-Girl does, as well as a myriad of other spider-like abilities similar to her parents. Spider-Girl, along with her brother and the rest of her family, is also a member of the Amazing 8 team. The Watchers are wary of her and her brother as they fear the siblings' multiversal adventures pose a great risk to the timeline, which honestly, fair enough. Multiversal shenanigans, I feel like, are always posing great risks to the timeline. Number 5. Jerry Drew. Coming in with the Zappies, it's baby Jerry. Jerry is actually the son of Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, not Spider-Man, but still, Jessica is considered to be a Spider-Man alternate, despite being one of the most separated characters from Spider-Man in terms of her origin. In fact, Canonically, in the world of 616, you could even say that Spider-Man would be considered an alternate of her. While Spider-Man first appeared in the 60s in the comics, canonically, Jessica is older than Peter and would therefore have gotten powers kind of before him. Although a main difference is that Jessica spent much of her childhood in a tube, removed from the world, and even after that was kind of like a secret agent of Hydra's for a time, before managing to escape her role working for them and becoming a hero and a PI. Jerry is her first and currently only son, and while he's still a little baby, he has already started to exhibit powers similar to Jessica, including his own baby-sized venom blasts, super strength and agility, and the ability to wall crawl. So a lot of potential for Jerry to follow in his mom's footsteps and possibly become even more skilled and powerful than she is. Number 4. May Parker. May Parker is of course another alternate reality version of Peter and MJ's daughter. As I said, the name May really does stick for them across the multiverse when it comes to their kids. This version of May comes from the Dark Ages reality, which isn't officially numbered yet, but does have a temporary number of Earth 891 for now. May in this reality is only a little kid when her powers first manifest. She has powers similar to her MC2 counterpart and of course similar to Peter's, including his famed spider sense. We get to watch May grow up somewhat in this reality, and she develops a close friendship with Danny Cage, the daughter of heroes Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Although in that reality I believe Jessica is now, she's Jessica Cage because I mean they're married, but yeah. If I say Jessica Cage, I feel like people are gonna be like, who's Jessica Cage? Because we all know her as Jessica Jones still. Number 3. Venom. Venom is the daughter of Peter and Mary Jane, who hails from the reality of Earth X, aka Earth 9997. Eventually, May Parker ends up bonded to the Venom symbiote in this reality. Its origins are a little different as it was created, like many other things in this reality, by the Celestials. They created symbiotes to protect the embryos that they had stored within planets. So yeah, a bit different. However, despite their origins not being quite the same, the Venom symbiote here still has similar powers and abilities, and even a similar appearance somewhat to their 616 counterpart. Although they tend to be more black and red, and the Venom symbiote tends to be more white and black. In the Earth X reality, at some point after the death of May's mother, MJ, the Venom symbiote left Eddie Brock and bonded with May Parker, who also was trained by her uncle, Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Pretty cool stuff. Not only does she have her Venom symbiote and spider-like powers inherited from her dad, but she also has fighting skills passed down from DD, which is pretty cool. Number 2. Mayday. While little uni-powered baby May might have some of the greatest potential, when it comes to actual feats of strength and powers that we've seen on display, Mayday probably takes the cake, just because she is one of the kids we've seen the most of. She is the daughter of Peter Parker and his wife Mary Jane Watson Parker from the MC2 reality. May Parker grows up to inherit her dad's powers in this reality, meaning that she too can wall crawl, has the proportional strength of a spider, possesses spider sense, and is extremely agile. In fact, while it's believed that May isn't as strong as her dad, she is believed to be even more agile and dexterous than him. So when it comes to her sense of balance and nimbleness, she actually beats Peter in this one regard. Number 1. Spiderling. Spiderling is Anna May Parker, nicknamed Annie, who comes from the Renew Your Vows universe, which became so popular that it got its own spin-off series as well as its own piece of patchwork reality in God Emperor Doom's Battle World Tapestry that was showcased during Secret Wars. Confirmed! God Emperor Doom is a shipper of Peter and MJ and thinks that they should have stayed married. We've confirmed it. He's like, I'm here for Renew Your Vows. That can be in my battle world. Annie, like her father, develops spider-like powers and abilities. And while we've seen the most of Mayday and she is likely the most popular of the alternate reality kids, I'd even suggest that Annie is more powerful as she has a more specific version of spider sense that basically allows her to see what potential danger is actually setting it off, giving her a sort of future sense, if you will, making her kind of a precog. Aside from that, she has not just her dad to guide her in heroics, but her mom as well, as in this universe, Mary Jane has powers of her own, taking up the superhero name of Spinneret. Mary Jane in this reality even at one point bonds with the Venom symbiote. Pretty crazy, especially considering MJ616's history with Venom. Also, guess what? I'm pretty sure Anna May is actually, one of the kids is actually named after MJ's Aunt Anna. So this is both aunt names combined, which I think is fair because both Aunt Anna and Aunt May are cool people.
At number 10, we have Harry Osborn. Son of Norman Osborn and the heir to the Green Goblin mantle, Harry Osborn gains even more power than his father for a time, but eventually succumbs to Goblin's disease. When Harry is born, his father, an industrialist obsessed with money and success, bargains his soul to the demon Mephisto in exchange for mass success in business. This leaves Harry with basically no chance at a happy life, inflicting him with a number of personal tragedies in adulthood and eventually banishing his soul to hell. And all this is the primary reason he isn't higher on the list. He gets so tormented by this that he fast tracks himself into villainy, overdosing himself on the Goblin Serum in an effort to live up to his father's power. Which he does for a time. Which is why he makes it onto this list, but he doesn't last long because he contracts an illness from the Goblin Serum and dies early. At number 9, we have Peter Quill, or Star-Lord. Leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill is the son of Jason in the comics, previous Emperor of Spartax, and holder of the mantle Mr. Knife. But in the movies, Peter Quill is the son of Ego the Living Planet, who's an extremely powerful villainous celestial. In both cases, Star-Lord is left with some pretty raw daddy issues which inform his character in pretty significant ways. The best thing his problematic fathers do for him is push him to be a very powerful and influential hero who is an adept tactician, pilot, and marksman, and has 3 times a human's lifespan, which is pretty cool. Considering he's half human, half supervillain in both these cases, he has really impressive feats under his belt that put him in a higher tier of power levels out of all the children of villains on this list. At number 8, we have Baron Helmut Zemo, son of Baron Heinrich Zemo. Heinrich is the main enemy of Captain America during his time in World War II, and his son, also Baron Zemo, just with Helmut in the middle, finds a way to become an even more powerful villain than his dad was. Driven by revenge, Helmut Zemo blames Captain America for his father's death and makes it his goal to take down the hero for good. After taking on the guise of the Phoenix to take him down at first, he fails and then falls into a vat of adhesive X, which horribly disfigures him. Years later, he comes back as simply Baron Zemo, and then further down the line adopts the mantle of Citizen V, a more powerful version of a former adventurer that was killed by his father. A whole other slew of stuff happens in this guy's life, but the point is this 13th descendant of the Baron Zemo bloodline becomes more powerful and influential than his father and continues to pose a threat to Captain America through his influence on Hydra and beyond.
Number 7, Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff, is believed to be the daughter of the mutant supervillain and occasional reluctant anti-hero, sort of not really, known as Magneto. Possessing a unique set of reality-altering powers, Wanda is one of the most complex and powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. Her abilities center on chaos magic, enabling her to manipulate probability and reality itself. She can create and alter matter, launch energy blasts, and even reshape the fabric of reality. However, her powers often come at a cost as they are intrinsically tied to her emotional state. This has led to moments of instability and significant events in Marvel's history, such as the infamous House of M storyline, where she altered reality on a global scale. Now, while she is not officially recognized as an Omega level threat, her actions show that she can indeed reach those levels. Despite her familial ties to Magneto, Scarlet Witch has displayed various roles, from a member of the Avengers to a pivotal figure in the mutant affairs on the good and the bad sides of things.
Number 6, Billy Batson. Shazam, or Captain Marvel as some still refer to him as today, is one of the most powerful heroes DC has, despite actually being a kid posing as a grown-up magical man and hero. Shazam's powers come from the gods, the limitless wisdom of Solomon, strength of Hercules, stamina of Atlas, power and omnipotence of Zeus, courage of Achilles, and speed of Mercury. There's really no limit, or there really shouldn't be, to what he can do.
Number 5, Proteus. The son of Moira McTaggart and her crummy husband Kevin McTaggart was an Omega level mutant with psionic reality warping powers, but also a pretty uncontrollable thirst for energy, which made him a danger to everyone around him. Moira was forced to enclose her son in a special status room that would sustain his energy consumption, but when this room was damaged, his body became burnt out and he needed to possess other human host bodies in order to survive. But these hosts could not contain his energy, so he would burn right through them, leaving whole swaths of bodies in his wake as he moved from one to the next until he managed to possess his own father, Joe. Now, of all the things for an insanely powerful reality warping mutant to be weak to, Proteus here had an inexplicable weakness to metal. After burning out Joe's body and being vulnerable in a form of pure energy, Colossus of the X-Men turned into his metal form and seemingly with one punch disrupts Proteus's energy form, causing a massive light show and scattering Proteus's energy all over Scotland. But Proteus would go on to return, possessing Blindfold, Destiny, Nightcrawler, Psylocke, Husk, and Trance in one fight, and way later he would eventually become a member of the Five, ensuring the survival of the mutant race. So he's kinda good in that regard, I guess.
Number 4, Naomi. Naomi is probably one of the most powerful of the younger heroes we've seen. Her powers are on the level of heavy hitters such as one of DC's main heroes, Superman. In fact, while transformed into her superhero mode, Naomi's power set is pretty similar, except for one very important and unique element to her. Unlike Superman, whose weakness is magic, Naomi actually bolsters and boosts magic around her. Her powers allow her to generate energy, which she can use in a few different ways. In combat, using it to blast opponents or to give her a physical boost. Alternatively, she can use that same energy to boost magic and magical beings around her, which honestly is pretty neat. However, as Naomi is still young, despite her potential, she still has some learning to do when it comes to her power set and how to best utilize and control it. Still, when she is fully in her power, when that happens, she will be one of the most OP superheroes at DC Comics, I imagine.
Number 3, Legion. David Haller was living in Paris with his mother when her home was suddenly invaded by an assassination team. Like that happens all the time. They took out David's stepfather before his eyes, which kicked off his latent psionic powers, which he then used to incinerate the brains of the assassins. However, as he did so, he also made telepathic contact with each of his victims, thus experiencing their thoughts and emotions as they passed away, which deeply affected David, forcing him into a catatonic state. At the same time, the consciousness of the leader of the assassins, Jamail Karami, was absorbed and merged into David's mind. All this happening had somehow splintered David's personality into multiple alters, with each of these alters controlling a different psionic power. Because of this, Legion is an Omega level mutant able to create spontaneous mutations of different kinds, including reality warping, that are accompanied by new personas or alters to govern each one of these new mutations. The whole reason David even has an X gene, though, is likely due to the fact that he is the son of the father figures to mutants everywhere, Professor Charles Xavier.
Number 2, Franklin Richards, or at the very least an alternate Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards of Earth 616 has had his mutant status removed and has been significantly nerfed in recent years, and while I'm personally not convinced this will end up staying a permanent change to his character, I don't think it's been undone yet, and it's been a while, so I might be waiting for some time. It would seem that Franklin had been using his powers to alter his genetics to appear as a mutant, but in reality was not, as Lady Gaga would say, born this way. This was not intentionally done, but apparently was subconsciously done, and when his powers started to go all wonky, eventually his unintentional genetic manipulation came to an end, exposing him basically as a fake mutant. A future Franklin Richards of Earth 10774, however, seemed to have remained a mutant, either permanently one in this alt future, or simply not exposing that he had unintentionally faked his mutant genes. It was the Mad Celestials in this future that literally identified him as beyond Omega level.
And in at number 1 today, it's Hyperstorm. Hyperstorm, or as he is known in his civilian identity, Jonathan Richards, is a character I think a lot of people forget about. His heritage finds its roots in 2 of Marvel's most prominent and powerful bloodlines. His father is Franklin Richards, the reality warping son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm of the Fantastic Four that Amanda just talked about. But his mother is Rachel Summers, an incredibly powerful telekinetic and telepathic mutant who is the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey of the X-Men. With these two incredibly powerful and influential family trees fueling Jonathan, he became one of the most powerful beings we have ever seen in Marvel Comics. He is essentially infinite psionic power drawn from hyperspace, allowing him control over the 4 fundamental forces of the universe, those being the strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetism, and gravitation. Theoretically, this means he can restructure, create, manipulate, and or destroy matter from a cosmic scale down to a subatomic level. He can create electromagnetic fields and electrical currents, make matter radioactive, manipulate gravity, cause nuclear detonations, emit enormous energy blasts, and honestly, accomplish nearly anything he sets his mind to. And then, he also has telepathy, telekinesis, and can heal from pretty much anything. And he has used these powers to conquer all of the inhabited worlds of the explored space of the alternate reality of Earth 967. And he's even messed with his ancestors in the Fantastic Four of the past.
Number 10. Cosmic Baby, or Uni Baby, or Uni Power Baby, or just May Parker if you want. Because you know, all of Peter and MJ's babies have to either be a May or a Ben. Mary Jane's family, I guess, is just so much of a disappointment that she does not feel inclined to name babies after them. I mean, her family life was pretty wild, so like I kinda understand why she's just cool naming kids after Peter's aunt and uncle, but MJ also had a pretty cool aunt, Aunt Anna, so I feel like there should actually be more multiversal kids named after her too. Anyways, the reason why I'm focusing so much on the name here is because we don't actually know much more than that when it comes to this baby. Baby May hails from a what-if story where Peter keeps the uni power instead of giving it up, or the Enigma Force if you will. Even in this story though, he does eventually give it up, he just keeps it a lot longer. It's also implied that because he had it so long, it gets passed on to his and MJ's baby daughter, May Parker. So even though she isn't there yet, this alternate baby has some of the greatest potential when it comes to power levels. Number 9. Benji. Benji is the little brother of May Parker and the youngest child of the Parker family in the MC2 universe of Earth 982. Benji actually began to display powers at a very young age, and as such was basically a superpowered little baby. Ben would become bonded to the Carnage symbiote when he was still a little tyke, but fortunately his sister May Parker saved him using a sonic weapon to separate him from the Carnage symbiote. Unfortunately, this also caused damage to Ben's very sensitive baby ears, which left him deaf for a time. I actually think that that whole element of this story was really interesting, and I think it would have been cool to see Benji grow up deaf and even still become a superhero like his sister and his dad before him. However, he would later have his hearing restored by May's good friend Normie Osborn, the grandson of Green Goblin and son of Harry Osborn and Liz Allen Osborn. Benji has displayed spider-like abilities including wall crawling, spider sense, and even the rare ability to generate organic webbing. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving the channel, be sure to head on over to Facebook to show your support for us over there. Number 8. Claire Parker. Claire Parker is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Parker, who hails from the reality belonging to Spider-Man life story, known as Earth 19529. Here, Claire proves to be strong enough to defeat Morlun when he returns and begins to hunt down Peter and his family, killing her own Uncle Ben Riley. Peter attempted to lure Morlun away from his kids, but was unsuccessful, and it came down to Claire and her brother Benji to defeat Morlun, which of course they did. Claire would go on to become a superhero in the next generation of heroes following her dad's time and era.
Number 7. Ultimate Red Skull. I'm cheating for this point, as this is totally a villain. In the Ultimate Universe, Steve Rogers and his girlfriend at the time, Gail Richards, ended up having a little one-night get-together in 1945 before he went and got himself popsicled. 9 months later, out popped a baby that the government decided needed to be kept a secret. They took the boy into foster care on a military base, training him to become a super soldier to replace the supposedly deceased Captain America. This child soon became stronger and more tactically skillful than his father, and by all intents and purposes seemed like the perfect compliant soldier. But in the background, Roger's son had been carefully planning his escape and was just biding his time. Now fast forward to 1963 when he was finally at the age of 17, and the son went on a spree, de-lifing all the doctors and soldiers at the facility. He also used a kitchen knife to carve the skin from his head, literally becoming the bloody Red Skull. In rebellion against the system that created him, this Red Skull was the one who planned President John F. Kennedy's send-off to the grave. He became an assassin and tries to eventually steal Reed Richards' plans for the Cosmic Cube in order to use it to change history so that he could just grow up with his dad. And that's really sad. Number 6. Franklin Richards. When Reed Richards and Sue Storm had a child together, a whole bunch of cosmic tomfoolery went on, resulting in Franklin Richards being born with powers to alter matter on a universal scale. I wish wish that happened every day. In other words, he can basically manipulate reality on a cosmic level, which is an insane amount of power for a kid to wield. He's put mental blocks on himself to help control this power, but that doesn't mean he can't still do a hell of a lot. Or at least he used to be able to. Some of the things that Franklin Richards has done include when all the mutants were destroyed by Onslaught, Franklin resurrected them all and put them in a universe that he just created. When Abraxas took out all the versions of Galactus, Franklin resurrected him. He's also resurrected Galactus and literally made him his herald. Recently, it was revealed that instead of being a mutant, Franklin actually altered every cell within his own body to appear like he had the X gene to fit in with all the other mutants. There's even a fan theory that Franklin Richards controls the Marvel multiverse itself to stop characters from aging throughout the many years that they have been around, and it's honestly kind of possible. And he's just the son of a guy who can stretch really long. Number 5, Nate Gray. For a guy named X-Man, he's gotta be a powerful character, and Nate Gray definitely is. Nate Gray comes from the Age of Apocalypse timeline. He was created by Mr. Sinister using the DNA of both Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. There are a few characters who are the child of these two mutants, namely, there is Cable. Now, Cable has huge psionic abilities, but because of being infected by the techno-organic virus, almost all of his energy goes towards keeping himself alive. Nate Gray is basically Cable without that limitation. When he finally came into the 616 reality, he was able to hide himself from Cerebro, which is supposed to be impossible. He is described as being on the same level of power as Jean Grey harnessing the Phoenix Force, which is one of the greatest threats the X-Men and the world has ever faced. He can read the minds of others, he can sense the emotions and histories left on objects, detect rifts in space and time, move into the astral plane where he can see the future, and after he had a bit of practice, he could even increase the power of other mutants. He has cured cancer, destroyed cities on the other side of the Earth during a nightmare, manipulated matter to a cosmic scale, and traveled through space and time. He is basically Mutant Jesus. Just look at him. Number 4, Mustang. What if number 114 posed us the question of, what if the heroes didn't leave Battleworld? Well, the answer to that question is, they make babies. While there are a few super kids in this story, the one I found to be the strangest and most interesting was Mustang. Mustang is Clint Barton Jr., and I bet you'll never guess who his daddy is. His mother, on the other hand, is actually also not surprising if you just look at Mustang. It's Jennifer Walters, the She-Hulk. So with these two avenging parents, that leaves Mustang with a super strength that isn't quite on She-Hulk's level and an affinity for using bows and arrows. It's kind of an odd combo. Now he's a bit taller than almost everyone else too, which also makes sense given Jennifer Walters. This, I'm guessing, gives him the ability to use bigger bows with much higher tensile strength, so he can shoot much bigger arrows, I guess. He can fire them faster? Something like that. I'm not saying these powers aren't helpful or cool, super strength is a classic. They are just kind of odd when you put super strength with bows and arrows. I don't know. Also, I don't know why they call them Mustang. Number 3, Moondragon. Heather Douglas, the daughter of one Arthur Douglas, also known as Drax the Destroyer, is actually one of the most powerful human-born telepaths in existence. She gained this power after being trained under the Shaolin monks of Titan, thanks to Thanos' father, Mentor, taking her in. Now, her telepathic abilities rival and surpass even those of powerful mutants like Professor X. With this power, she was able to mentally control an entire planet of beings who were constantly at war with each other, bringing peace to that entire planet. She has been in a psionic stalemate with the Sorcerer Supreme, and she's even straight up de-lifed a clone of Thanos, who at the time had even greater mental powers than Professor X himself. Her powers are so powerful, in fact, that they can maintain themselves subconsciously, meaning that even if she is unconscious, she will maintain the effects of those powers. A huge part of her character, even the reason for her awesome Moondragon name, comes from the fact that she is, or was, actually under the influence of an extremely powerful entity known as the Dragon of the Moon, who has been controlling her for a long time, even initially letting her believe that she had overcome the demon. But thanks to this dragon, she has been able to take on a dragon form, where she can move faster than light, survive in space, and was super strong and durable, and she looked like a dragon. That's just cool. Number 2, Mayday Parker. First appearing in a What If comic, specifically number 105 from December 1997, the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane from a future alternate world, Earth 982, Mayday Parker becomes Spider-Girl and eventually Spider-Woman, and fills the role that her father once held as the next generation of heroes. Now, where May is only slightly weaker than Parker in the strength department, she is much more agile and has a stronger, more precise spider sense. Her ability to stick to surfaces is considerably more powerful than Peter's as well. However, wall crawling does not come as naturally to May, and she has to concentrate to stick to surfaces. She also has the ability to transmit her sticking to surfaces through objects for short distances. So basically, Spider-Girl could stick to the floor and transmit that through the floor, making everyone and everything else stuck in place as well, which is really weird and kind of boggles my mind. But what's even cooler is that she can reverse the ability, and instead of stick, she can repel off of surfaces. Now this adds power to her jumps, sure, but it can also be used to repel people and objects away from her at speed, like a force push. And Peter, he just can't do that. So, here you go. Finally, in at number 1 today, Cassandra Cain. Sandra Woo-san is one of the deadliest martial artists in the world. As a kid, Sandra and her sister Carolyn trained with each other, creating a unique martial art that they mastered and would display in spars with each other, which, unfortunately, gained the attention of David Cain, Ra's al Ghul, and the League of Assassins. Sandra always held back against her sister, and in order to unlock her true potential, David Cain removed Carolyn from the equation. Now this did allow Sandra to unlock her true potential and to become a martial artist with almost no rival except for one, her own daughter, Cassandra Cain. Cassandra is easily the toughest Batgirl and arguably the most skilled member of the Bat family, mainly because of her skill with hand-to-hand combat. Thanks to her highly unique fighting style coupled with all of her training at the hands of her parents, she could easily defeat her predecessor Barbara Gordon, but even Batman would be given a run for his money in a straight-up fist fight. Cassandra has beaten her own mother, Lady Shiva, who we just talked about, and her father, David Cain, and they are two of the best fighters in the DC universe. She was brought into the world and trained by the League of Assassins to be the quote, one who is all, and also the ultimate bodyguard for Ra's al Ghul. She received even more training from Bronze Tiger, Merlin the Archer, Batman himself, Lady Shiva, her mother, Oracle, and Black Canary. She has near metahuman levels of speed, immense resistance to pain, and she can read people's body language, which allows her to mimic anyone's fighting style and predict all their next moves.
At number 10, the Mongrels. The Mongrels are a multi-crew with names that sound like rejected comic book ideas, carrying a dark secret that adds a layer of tragedy to their villainy. We got Shadowstalker, Fire Knives, Sawfist, Gunhawk, and Cannonfoot. But what truly sets them apart, aside from their terrible names, is their lineage, or rather their twisted heritage. You see, each member of the Mongrels is Wolverine's offspring, a revelation that only came to light after their individual demises at the hands of the very father they sought to torment. That's right, Wolverine unknowingly exterminated his own bloodline. Now, it probably didn't help that their shared mission was to turn Wolverine's life into a never-ending nightmare, but while their motivations remained shrouded in mystery, they pursued their vendetta by targeting Logan's loved ones, only to meet their untimely ends at his adamantium claws. The poetic tragedy is that Wolverine chose to bury them near the resting places of their mothers. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. At number 9 is Fury, the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steppenwolf. In her initial portrayal within the Earth 2 universe, Fury found herself on the wrong side of the comic divide. Raised by Steppenwolf, she donned a costume eerily reminiscent of Orion, bearing the indelible mark of her lineage. As the last Amazon born from Wonder Woman, Fury's isolation from her compassionate kin may have nudged her towards the abyss. The lure of Apocalypse proved strong, whether due to paternal influence or personal inclination. It took the persuasive powers of Mr. Miracle to reorient Fury's path, transforming her from harbinger of doom to a defender of the cosmos. At number 8 is Hope Pym. Unlike the familiar 616 timeline where the torch is often passed from one hero to the next, MC2 sees a generational power shift 15 years ahead of schedule. Enter Hope Pym, a character emblematic of the darker side of this generational transition. Her disillusionment with the new Avengers, perceived as a mockery of their parents' iconic legacy, took a sinister turn. Hope's misguided belief led her down a treacherous path, capturing and tormenting her fellow heroes, particularly Cassandra Lang. Her plan to obliterate the Avengers Mansion was only thwarted by the intervention of her own brother.
Number 7. Thor. Now, a lot of people don't look at Thor and think, the child of a superhero, but Odin's son is his name, and back in his heyday, a superhero Odin he became. That made sense, right? I don't know. Back millions of years ago, Odin Borson was one of the first members of a prehistoric team of Avengers who protected the Earth from all kinds of threats, from celestials to temporal incursions. So, when his son Thor set off to become a hammer-swinging hero, he was really just taking after his own poppy and following in Odin's massive footsteps. Becoming a founding member of the modern-day Avengers was really just a part of that when you think about it, but I think we can all agree that Thor's avenging feats are much more recognized than those of his dear old dad, who has become much more well known for ruling Asgard, having constant wars and battles with the other realms, and just being a big old grumpy grump. Number 6. Hulkling. With a name like Hulkling and the fact that he's green, you may think that Theodore Teddy Altman has some kind of Hulk-related powers, but you would be dead wrong. Funnily enough, Hulkling is actually the direct son of none other than the first ever Captain Marvel of the Kree. Okay, but why is he green and can shapeshift? Well, that's because back during the Kree-Skrull War, the Super Skrull took Captain Marvel, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch and presented them to the Skrull Emperor. While being imprisoned, Captain Marvel and the Emperor's daughter, Princess Enel, got a little bit too close to one another, and about 9 months, or however long it takes for Skrulls, later, out popped a tiny little Kree-Skrull hybrid with superhuman strength, speed and stamina, and the ability to shapeshift. For a lot of his time, Hulkling would turn into a teenage-sized Hulk as a member of the Young Avengers, but thanks to his heritage, he has moved on to become the Emperor of the Kree-Skrull Empire. Number 5. Scar. From Hulkling to the actual son of the Hulk. When the Incredible Hulk was banished from Earth by the Illuminati, he crash-landed on the planet Sakaar, which is where the Hulk met his second wife, Kaera. Unbeknownst to the Hulk though, when Sakaar was destroyed, Kaera actually gave birth to Hulk's first children, Scar and Hero Kala. Scar became an incredibly powerful warrior on the ruined Sakaar with a vendetta against his father. Luckily though, that vendetta was resolved. Scar is just a straight up badass. Thanks to his parentage, he heals fast, is resistant to cold and electricity, among other things, is practically immortal, can absorb radiation and control it, can breathe underwater, and even turn himself into stone, among many other things. After somewhat resolving things with his dad, Scar and Hulk trained with each other, fighting supervillains on Earth, and also aiding and eventually joining the Avengers. And Scar even acted as a double agent for Steve Rogers on the Dark Avengers team. Number 4. Wiccan. Wiccan, whose spiritual connection to Scarlet Witch is reminiscent of her 2 twin sons portrayed in WandaVision, exists in the comics as well. In both the comics and the MCU, his existence is made possible by Scarlet Witch's reality warping powers, although him and his brother are eventually erased from existence for the safety of everyone, including Wanda herself. Scarlet Witch later recovers her memories of her children, leading to a mental breakdown and the monumental event known as the House of M. Following those events, it is revealed that her children were reborn through reincarnation. Wiccan, as one of her spiritual sons, has inherited his mother's remarkable magical abilities. Like Scarlet Witch, Wiccan wields magic to manipulate reality, and in certain timelines, he even ascends to the role of Sorcerer Supreme in the future. He has been a part of the New Avengers, Avengers Idea Mechanics, the Young Avengers, and the Secret Avengers. Number 3. Speed. Speed, also known as Tommy Shepard, joined the ranks of the Young Avengers during a critical mission prompted by the abduction of their teammate Hulkling by Kree sentries. As his moniker suggests, Speed possesses extraordinary speedster abilities that set him apart. He can attain speeds that easily breach the supersonic threshold. Beyond sheer swiftness though, Speed can manipulate the molecules within objects, a capability that can lead to explosive outcomes or make him completely intangible. His rapid cognition also enables him to process information at extraordinary speeds, granting him a tactical advantage in high-stakes situations. A noteworthy moment in Speed's journey was a thrilling race against the veteran speedster Quicksilver, aka his uncle. While Quicksilver emerged as the victor, it became evident that Speed held immense potential for growth and development. During this period, he played an integral role in a daring mission to liberate his spiritual mother, Scarlet Witch, from the clutches of Latveria, alongside his brother. Number 2, Laura Kinney. There are a few characters with powers similar to Wolverine, and there are even a few who are clones of Laura herself, but of all these characters, Laura is certainly the best and definitely the most fan-loved. Her powers are very similar to Logan's, with her primary mutant power being an accelerated healing factor, and obviously she also has those retractable bone claws, only she has 2 in her forearms and 1 in each foot. Sounds pretty uncomfortable to me, but hey, to each their own. She was obviously a clone and grew up being made to be a weapon, so of course she has an extremely haunted past, but with Logan as a father figure in her life, she grew up under him, and she even did the same for Gabrielle Kinney, another clone who Laura considers her younger sister, and she became an Avenger and an X-Men, so good job. Number 1, Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone is the daughter of the once immortal monster hunter Ulysses Bloodstone. Ulysses trained Elsa from birth to inherit the family business, but using the word trained is kind of an understatement. As a rite of passage, Ulysses made Elsa face the Blight Beast when she was just a baby. He tried to remove her, quote, weaknesses by throwing her to a horde of great white sharks, and as her first monster kill, he made her face a clip-off and then allowed her to get infected by its blood as punishment for just taking too long. It's all the stuff that loving fathers are known for. But she did indeed jump in after her father's passing, taking up the tradition and becoming one of the best monster hunters in the world. As part of her inheritance, she received the Bloodstone Choker, granting her enhanced strength, stamina, speed, and durability, and an enhanced healing factor. But those are powers she did already possess to a certain degree thanks to the blood running through her veins, which is also toxic to vampires, and even if one did bite her, she's immune to the vampire curse. Cool little fact for you. As you can imagine, her attributes plus her profession as one of the best monster hunters in the world made her a valuable asset when she was part of the Avengers. Number 10, Eli Bradley. Elijah Bradley, also known as Patriot of the Young Avengers, comes from a family with ties all the way back to a dark, hidden truth about Captain America. Back when Captain America successfully became a super soldier, the serum was lost with the passing of Professor Erskine, so to try and recreate the results, Colonel Walker Price and Dr. Wilfred Nagel took 300 African American soldiers from Mississippi to experiment upon. Only a handful of these men survived the awful experimentation, and only one of them survived the covert missions and assignments. His name was Isaiah Bradley, or as he was called then, the Black Captain America. This was Eli's grandfather. When a young Nathaniel Richards going by Iron Lad attempted to recruit superpowered beings to create a new Avengers team, he went to seek out Eli's uncle, who had also become a super soldier just like Isaiah, but he had gone missing, so instead, Eli lied to Iron Lad, claiming to be a super soldier due to a blood transfusion from his grandfather, and he volunteered for Iron Lad's team. Eli then began using the illegal mutant growth hormone pills to fabricate superhuman abilities. It wasn't until much later on that he did actually receive a blood transfusion from his grandfather and actually gained super soldier abilities. Number 9, Brandy Selby. Right now, the current star brand in the 616 universe is Brandy Selby, the daughter of Suzanne Selby, who became the star brand after the one before her, Kevin Connor, passed away, sending Suzanne on a path of destruction. The Avengers stepped in and had to help Suzanne deliver little Brandy, but unfortunately Suzanne passed away during the experience and attached the star brand to Brandy herself. The Avengers then took little Brandy back to Earth to raise her. Since Brandy's birth, she's used the star brand to fly and survive without oxygen in the vacuum of space, and she can use extremely powerful energy blasts that can take down multiple people at once. The only problem is that as Brandy uses her powers, she also ages herself up, becoming a young adult after unleashing a blast against the multiversal masters of evil alongside Captains America and Marvel. This really worried the Avengers, but they let her join up anyways, and she helped in the fight against Mephisto and the Council of Red. By the climax of that fight, she had become an old woman, and after sitting out for for a lot of the fighting, she eventually sacrificed herself to undo all the damage done by the multiversal masters of evil. Number 8. Cassie Lang. As a young child, Cassie Lang suffered from a congenital heart defect. To save her life, her father, Scott Lang, stole Henry Pym's Ant-Man equipment and Pym particles, which he used to rescue Dr. Sondheim, the only doctor capable of curing Casey's condition. Now, sometime later, after the divorce of her parents, Casey's father joined the Avengers, and Casey spent a bunch of her time living in Avengers Mansion. Unbeknownst to anyone else though, Cassie used the time to secretly expose herself to Pym particles, in the hopes that she could be a superhero like her father. After Scott's death during Avengers Disassembled, Cassie began living with her mother and stepfather, and tensions were high. So one night, Cassie planned to leave home and join the Runaways, but on that same night, Cassie learned about the Young Avengers. Cassie and Kate Bishop went to the Avengers Mansion and found Iron Lad, Patriot, Hulkling, and Asgardian. Joining up as a new Avengers team, they defeated Kang the Conqueror and saved the world, and Cassie took on the superhero name of Stature. She has gone on as a mighty Avenger, fighting Dr. Doom, passing away and coming back. She joined the MCU, and she now goes by the superhero name Stinger.
At number 7 is Ashley Barton. In the tangled web of alternate realities and twisted timelines, Ashley Barton's descent into villainy serves as a cautionary tale. Raised in the unforgiving wastelands of Earth 807128, the era in which Old Man Logan takes place, Ashley's lineage promised heroism, with her grandfather being the legendary Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, and her father the sharp-eyed Hawkeye. Wait a second, do the math? That's not good. However, Ashley's destiny took a dark turn when she sought to topple the reigning kingpin, only to find herself ensnared. Upon her rescue by her father Hawkeye, the narrative could have embraced redemption. However, Ashley's actions are shattered by that hope. In a shocking act of brutality, she used her spider strength to unalive the kingpin, seizing his throne and ruling the empire with an iron grip. As her father fled, she unleashed her forces, creating a web of turmoil, pun intended, that spiraled into chaos and darkness. A tragic example of how noble lineage can warp into something altogether sinister. At number 6 is Scar. Born from the cataclysmic events of Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, Scar's origins are drenched in tragedy. Bruce Banner's twin sons, Scar and Hero Kala, miraculously survived the annihilation of their home planet Sakaar, thanks to their mother's protective cocoons. Eventually, Scar arrives on Earth, where his actions teeter on the precipice of heroism and villainy. Driven by a twisted sense of justice, he becomes a self-proclaimed unaliver of unalivers, attempting to obliterate those he deems responsible for pain and destruction. Notably, Scar clashed with his father, the Hulk, in multiple epic battles, even impaling him once. His unpredictable nature eventually led him to join Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. At number 5 is Hero Kala. Hero Kala is the lesser-known offspring of the Incredible Hulk, who took a drastically different path than his father and twin brother Scar. Surviving the cataclysmic events on Sakaar, Hero Kala emerged as a force to be reckoned with, but not quite in the way you might expect from a superhero's child. See, instead of heroism, he embraced conquest and power. His connection to the old power, an artificial version of the power cosmic, fueled his ambition. During his time as a slave on Sakaar, Hero Kala sought knowledge about the old power. His thirst for vengeance ignited when Silver Surfer warned of Galactus' impending arrival, leading to the consumption of his home planet. Driven by rage and his perceived birthright, Hero Kala became a world breaker himself, rising to godlike status in pursuit of revenge against Galactus. At number 4 is Daken. Meet Daken, the offspring of Wolverine and the late Itsu. The name Daken itself carries the weight of his tumultuous upbringing, as it means mongrel or bastard dog in Japanese. This moniker was not unjustified, for Daken's mixed heritage subjected him to ridicule, leading to a cold and detached personality. Disowned by his adopted family, he found solace in the sinister embrace of Romulus. But Daken's descent into darkness didn't stop there. He confronted his own father, Wolverine, that left him impaled by his son's claws. Later, he clashed with Wolverine again, overpowering him. Wolverine's hope for redemption was met with bitter disappointment, as Daken not only usurped his father's mantle as Wolverine, but also led his version of the Brotherhood of Mutants. At number 3 is Legion. David Haller, the offspring of the renowned Charles Xavier, isn't your run-of-the-mill villain. Thanks to his multiple personality disorder, an unfortunate side effect of his power to assimilate personalities and abilities, David's life as a world whirlwind of inner turmoil. You might remember him from FX's Legion, where his fractured psyche takes center stage. See, David isn't inherently evil, but his internal chaos just can't be ignored. His journey began with a bang when he absorbed the persona of a radical extremist group leader, a rather ominous start. As time passed, he continued to absorb other personalities, making it incredibly difficult to keep a grip on his own identity. Hero or villain, it's a blurred line for David. He's a perplexing mixture of, well, everything, a product of circumstance and the powers he never asked for. At number 2 is Amon Sur, the offspring of Abin Sur, a predecessor to Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps, emerged from the shadows with a vendetta that would shake the very foundation of intergalactic peacekeepers. Hailing from the enigmatic Unagaran race, known for their remarkable regenerative abilities, Amon Sur possessed an uncanny power, the capability to regrow severed body parts, including their own heads. This extraordinary trait would soon prove useful in his nefarious pursuits. Driven by a simmering rage ignited by his father's untimely demise, Amon Sur harbored deep-seated resentment towards the Green Lantern Corps. In his eyes, Abin Sur had chosen the Corps over his own family, leaving Amon feeling abandoned and forsaken. Consumed by anger, Amon turned to the sinister allure of the Guardian Yellow Power Ring, heralding his descent into the darkness. With his newfound power, Amon Sur unleashed a relentless assault on the very organization his father had sought to destroy, defying everything his predecessor had once stood for, and forging a path of chaos and destruction. And at number 1 is Jason Todd. Alright. Technically, Jason Todd isn't the son of a superhero, but through adoption and mentorship, Jason Todd, much like Dick Grayson before him and Tim Drake following, he is most definitely thought of as a son by Batman. This character serves as perhaps the most famous example of a superhero kid going bad, as the second Robin would go on to become the notorious anti-hero, the Red Hood. It all started, or rather ended, when Jason's fate was tragically sealed by the Joker, who brutally took his life via a crowbar whooping and a massive explosion. However, eventually Jason was brought back to life. Abandoning the ideals of his mentor Batman, Jason embraced a far more ruthless approach to crime fighting. Armed with firearms and a willingness to employ extreme methods, he aimed to put a definitive end to Gotham's criminal underworld. Now, despite a lingering sense of righteousness, Jason's actions veered sharply from the conventional hero's path, casting a dark shadow over his once promising future.
Number 10, MCU kids. What? That's right. Thanks to the writers of Endgame, we know for certain that Captain America has 2 kids with none other than Peggy Carter. At the end of Endgame, Captain America decided to retire to the past and marry Peggy Carter, who he had been separated from for decades thanks to his years spent in the ice before being revived during the events of the first Avengers film. Peggy's husband was first referenced in the 2014 sequel to the first Captain America film, Captain America the Winter Soldier, in which an older Peggy mentions that she got married after the war and had 2 children. We now know that that husband actually was Steve himself, who had gone back in time, and those 2 mysterious children belonged to him. This kind of leaves us wondering, where were Captain America's super kids this whole time, and will they play a part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in years to come? This has yet to be seen, but they will almost definitely play a part in the future of the MCU. Number 9. Jack Rogers. Jackson Jack Rogers is from the alternate future world of Earth TRN 858 and is Steve Rogers' great-great-grandson. He lives in a utopian society where the super soldier serum is used by hospitals to cure patients. The only problem is that for Jack's son, Steve, his body is rejecting the serum and having a negative effect. He goes to the president and asks for the secrets to the serum, but a Kree general rejects him. Turns out the Kree are actually using the serum to turn humans into a sleeper army. So once Jackson finds that out, a whole manhunt begins, and he ends up allying, sorta, with the Red Skull and using his ancestor's shield to fight against the Kree. Now it turns out his son actually has a recessive Kree gene, and the serum is actually harmful to the Kree, which Rogers uses to his advantage, finding the serum and stopping the Kree invaders with a bit of help from the Cosmic Q powered Red Skull. Now it's a really cool story, but Rogers is basically just a normal guy with a great lineage. Number 8. General America. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the great-grandson of Stephen Rogers, as the story he was in, What If Captain America #1, was mainly about the Civil War hero. But from what I can tell, he seems to have the same kind of enhancements as his previous ancestors who took up the Captain America mantle. They were all blessed with an ancient power that gave them peak human conditioning and also, presumably, mystical protection from harm. Another point that I think just makes them a cut above is their constant battle with the white supremacist group known as the White Skulls. He himself is descended from the great Civil War era Captain America who fought the White Skull, saved President Lincoln and the Native American peoples, and even helped end the Civil War earlier than it normally would have. The Captain Americas are a lineage that will continue on as long as there is injustice to fight.
Number 7. Superman. Jonathan Kent is the natural-born son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, aka Superman. He was born during the events that caused a reset of the universe when the New 52 came about. He and his family were relocated to the New 52 Prime Earth, even though they were originally from the New Earth continuity, meaning that for a while we actually had 2 Supermans on planet Earth, although one was operating in secret, that one being John's dad. Currently, we also have 2 Supermans on planet Earth right now, with John being one of them. John would become good friends with another super son, Damian Wayne, Batman's son. Damian and John initially did not get along at first, but would eventually find common ground and then become pretty much the best of friends. Of course, then John went off to space and grew up rapidly, returning to Earth and taking up the mantle of Superman himself. So now he's kind of a little bit older than Damian is. It's a weird spacey thing. John's powers are at a very similar scope and level, but as a human Kryptonian hybrid, he apparently does have the potential to become even more powerful than Clark. That's been stated in the comics. Even though you would think that his human half might make him weaker, it actually has the opposite effect. Number 6. Magni Thorson. Magni is the son of Thor. He hails from the alternate future reality of Earth 3515, which was erased from existence at the behest of kind of Magni himself in essence. Although he loved his son, the future Allfather Thor, who had Magni with his queen Amora, the Enchantress, ended up traveling back in time to actually warn his past self about everything that would come to pass should he rule over Midgard, which was what led him down this darker path in the first place, creating this alternate reality and along with it his son Magni, who ends up having to kind of like fight against his dad later to make him see sense. Thor of the present listened to the warning of his future self and heeded it, preventing this version of Magni from really ever existing. When he did exist though, Magni was considered to be similar to Thor in his abilities, but he was also believed to be even stronger physically than even Thor had been, being known as the God of Strength. Magni was also capable of wielding Mjolnir in his lifetime. Number 5. Tim Drake. Tim Drake is known for being probably one of the smartest children of Batman around. Although Tim had parents in the original continuity of New Earth, he was adopted by Bruce Wayne, so at least then and there he was considered an adoptive son. Now in the current continuity, his backstory hasn't become quite so tragic, and I think his parents are still alive. While Tim might not be the best marksman or fighter of the Bat family bunch, he is definitely the most intelligent and best detective when it comes to living up to Batman's legacy. And in fact, it's even been implied that he is basically going to be, if he isn't already, like a better detective than Batman, which is pretty crazy. Number 4. Starbrand. Brandy Selby became the adopted goddaughter of Thor in issue number 32 of the 2018 Avengers series. He promised to take care of her after the Avengers, as he saw it, failed her mother, who ended up dying in childbirth. Thor especially felt bad as he had succumbed to being possessed by the Brood at the time, and really wasn't much help to the team when they came across the previous Starbrand, Suzanne, Brandy's mother, who went into labor. She gave birth to a healthy baby girl but did not survive the delivery. She passed on her Starbrand to her unnamed baby, who was then later named Brandy by the Avengers. The Avengers themselves took Brandy in and did their best to raise her as a group. Unfortunately, while Brandy has one of the greatest cosmic powers in the universe, bearing the mark of the Starbrand, she also experienced complications when using her powers, becoming aged every time she used them. In the end, she chose to use her powers one last time, sacrificing herself to save the multiverse in an effort to help the rest of her Avengers family and team. Number 3. Unknown Baby. Baby has no name. Probably May though. Probably May. This has been something that has always left me wondering in the comics, and which was recently kind of touched on in terms of the potential of their offspring. MJ and Peter have gotten pregnant a few times in the comics, but one of their children, who was born in the main continuity in Amazing Spider-Man issue 418, we never really got to know. The child was spirited away shortly after being born, and MJ was made to believe that they didn't survive. This was all revealed to be part of a plot conducted by Norman Osborn, of course, who sought to take the offspring. Why? For what purpose? Well, we never really found out about that. During Identity Crisis, there was a hint that May would return, but it would turn out to be Peter's Aunt May and not the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter, who was probably going to be named May. It's been stated in the comics before that Norman disposed of this offspring after having one of his employees, Allison Mongrain, take the child to Europe. However, more recently at the end of Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run, it was also implied that this child might be the key to defeating Mephisto, suggesting that Mephisto actually took MJ and Peter's marriage years before in an attempt to avoid defeat at the hands of their daughter. Number 2. Legion. Legion is the son of Professor Charles Xavier, who was born out of his brief but really intense romantic relationship with Gabrielle Haller. When Charles and Gabrielle broke things off, Charles left not knowing that she was pregnant. Gabrielle is where Legion gets his legal last name from, as his given name is David Haller. Legion is so powerful because while possessing severe dissociative identity disorder, he has more than 100, I believe possibly even more than 200 at this point, personas residing within him. Each persona has a number, and many of them actually have names, but most importantly, they each have their own specific power set that manifests whenever they take over Legion. Because of this, there's almost nothing that Legion can't do. He can manipulate matter and time. We've seen Legion time travel in the comics and completely warp reality as a result of his insanely powerful abilities. He also has some pretty powerful hair, which I'm happy to say he still rocks, even in the current modern day comics. Number 1. Dream. Dream is definitely one of the most powerful children out there, and if you're wondering how Dream of the Endless is considered a child of a superheroes, let me explain. Daniel is the son of Lita and Hector. In the Sandman comics and in the DC universe, Hippolyta, or Lita as we sometimes refer to her, was the hero known as Fury, who was considered in a previous continuity to be the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, who Diana had after she settled down and somewhat retired. Had with Steve, obviously. Hector Hall himself was also a legacy hero here, the son of Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Hector was known by a few different names before his death, chiefly the Silver Scarab and, of course, the Sandman. He would later return and become known as Dr. Fate as well. Daniel, therefore, is descended of 2 superheroes. Because he was conceived in the Dreaming, Lord Morpheus, the previous Dream, actually claimed baby Daniel, promising to one day return for him. This day came when it was time for Morpheus to basically die and for a new Dream to take his place. Enter Daniel, who became the new Dream and one of the most powerful beings in all of existence. Number 10. Hyperman. Hyperman is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman, who comes from the reality belonging to the Kingdom Come story and follow-up story, The Kingdom. In that story, little baby John Kent is taken by Gog. He ends up being rescued by 2 different versions of his parents and his godfather, Batman. In the end, the child goes off with his future self, the hero Hyperman, who also rules and guards over all of Hypertime. Hyperman raises the child, that is also technically him, on his own, continuing the circle and pretty much guaranteeing that John Kent will grow up to become Hyperman, a time-traveling, dimension-hopping, insanely powerful hero. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9. Scarlet Spider. Felicity Hardy is the hero Scarlet Spider in the MC2 reality of Earth 982. Of course, she is the daughter of Black Cat, aka Felicia Hardy, and Flash Thompson, Peter's childhood tormentor turned best friend. Felicia later leaves Flash and starts a relationship with her work colleague Diana, which puts strain on her relationship with her daughter. Scarlet Spider was trained by her mother, has a brilliant investigative mind, and uses gadgets in order to simulate spider-like abilities while acting as a hero. She's also a friend and ally of Spider-Girl Mayday Parker, the daughter of Peter Parker's Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson in this reality. Number 8. Warhawk. Warhawk is the future son of Green Lantern John Stewart and Hawkgirl from the DCAU, the DC Animated Universe. He first appeared in the animated series Batman Beyond and was created by Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. Warhawk's real name is Rex Stewart, and he was actually named after one of John's friends from the military, Rex Mason, who would later go on to become the Element Man Metamorpho. Warhawk gets super strength from his mom and has an extremely strong set of armor, complete with wings, as those he was actually not born with, so gotta make your own. Bring your own wings. BYOW.
Coming in at number 7, it's Ellie Rogers. The daughter of Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter, Ellie Rogers is a member of the Resistance in the really cool Secret Wars story of Hail Hydra from 2015. In the second issue, she meets up with Ian Rogers, Nomad, and after the Resistance is attacked by Venom, she gets infused with a Venom symbiote, gaining similar powers to those of Eddie Brock. Before this point though, she seems to just be a very healthy, regular person, even despite her father's super soldier status. She had given up on the dream of the Resistance after such a long time under the control of Hydra, but her brother, Nomad, inspired her to keep up the fight, and they got in a wee kerfuffle with the Hydra Avengers. She was taken out by her injuries. Number 6, James Rogers. With most of the heroes killed during a battle with Ultron and the world at the mercy of the villain's army, Captain America tells Iron Man to take the children of the Avengers to a base in the Arctic Circle to keep them safe. Here, Tony trains the kids for over 12 years until they become the new Young Avengers. Among these children is the son of Captain America and Black Widow, James Rogers. As the son of 2 super soldiers, James possesses all the benefits of the super soldier serum: peak human strength, speed, durability, agility, stamina, and reflexes. He also becomes the natural leader of the group of Young Avengers and has a natural gift for tactics and planning. So much so that it helped the team to defeat Ultron with the help of the Hulk. Number 5. Ultimate Red Skull. In the Ultimate Universe, Steve Rogers and girlfriend at the time, Gail Richards, end up having a little one-night get-together in 1945 before he went and got himself popsicled. 9 months later, out popped a baby that the government decided needed to be kept a secret. They took the boy into foster care on a military base, training him to become a super soldier to replace the supposedly deceased Captain America. He soon became stronger and more tactically skillful than his father, and by all intents and purposes, seemed like the perfect compliant soldier. But to our surprise, Rogers' son had been carefully planning his escape and was biding his time. Fast forward to 1963, when he was finally at the age of 17, the son went on a spree, de-lifing all the doctors and soldiers at his facility. He also used the kitchen knife to carve the skin from his head, literally becoming the bloody Red Skull. In rebellion against the system that created him, Red Skull was the one who planned President John F. Kennedy's send-off to the grave. He becomes an assassin and tries to eventually steal Reed Richards' plans for the Cosmic Cube in order to use it to change history so he could grow up with his father. And now I'm really sad and this sucks. Number 4. Virginia Dare. I'm openly going to be cheating for this point. You'll have to forgive me because I ain't going back now. While Virginia Dare is not at all in any shape or form the daughter of Steve Rogers, on Earth 311, the Earth of Marvel 1602, she is the first child born in the Americas, aka the New World, and the time-displaced Rogers takes her under his wing in a way. Virginia has the ability to transform into any animal she wants, which is arguably a very powerful as well as versatile power. Rogers accompanies her across the ocean and to visit the Queen of England. He is her protector and he confides in her about his true origins, so they share a bond that's maybe a bit more comparable to a brother and a sister. But as he is inspired by the core values that he believes symbolize America, and she is the first child of America, his will to protect and guide her is strong enough that I think she deserves a spot here. Number 3. Sharon Rogers. This offspring of Captain America actually comes from Marvel Future Fight, therefore making it a little difficult to judge her level of power. But as for her backstory, well, in an alternate universe where Captain America was never frozen in ice at the end of World War II, Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter celebrated V-Day with a private marriage ceremony. In not too much time at all after the couple's honeymoon, when Peggy was assigned to South Korea, the couple welcomed the birth of their daughter, Sharon. Following in her heroic parents' footsteps, Sharon soon became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. herself and eventually took over the role of Captain America. Tony Stark presented her with an awesome-looking, heavy-duty but lightweight Starlight armor, alongside a new energy-absorbing shield and a new weapon, the Blaster Lance. She looks wild and totally awesome, and I'm assuming is on par with her father ability-wise, but with the obvious technological equipment. Number 2. Ian Rogers. An adopted test tube baby created by Arnim Zola in Dimension Z, Ian Rogers, or Nomad, was taken by Steve Rogers and was raised for 10 years by him in Dimension Z until he was thought to be accidentally taken out by Sharon Carter. But he actually lived and was raised further by Sharon while Steve was back in the real world. Being trained by Cap, Ian was exceedingly useful in combat and even with using a shield like his father's. But he was also born with above peak human levels of physical and mental abilities, like enhanced strength, speed, intellect, and longevity, as well as accelerated healing thanks to the biogel Zola made him with. As long as he has a supply of the gel within his armor, his body will always fix itself. And that's pretty cool. He had a really awesome leading part in the Secret Wars story Hail Hydra from 2015. He once wielded the shield of Cap but now uses the Horde Crusher, which is a big old staff made by Arnim Zola. He's awesome. Check him out. And number 1. Sarah Rogers. In What If number 114 from September of 1998, we get a story of what would happen if the heroes who were transported to Battle World in Secret Wars actually just stayed there. And well, they make babies. Sarah Rogers was the daughter of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and the X-Man Rogue. Now Rogue's body has actually been taken over by Carol Danvers in this story, who gained enough control over Rogue's powers for Sarah to actually exist, because, you know, Rogue can't do the whole physical touch thing. Her powers are pretty basic, with superhuman strength and durability, as well as the power of flight, but she permanently borrows the shield of her father, and it turns out she's actually worthy of wielding the hammer of Thor. It's great. During a fight with the son of Dr. Doom, who is trying to return to Earth and conquer it, Sarah, like most of these descended from the Captain, becomes a natural leader and helps inspire the other teen heroes. She is very powerful and she is very cool.